In this section, we will explore the resources that we will find within our school's DRA kit and that we will use during our DRA assessments. This section has 2 explanation videos as well as a tutorial walkthrough which can be found on the My Savas WINS website. At the end of this section about the assessment process, you will have the chance to stop and reflect about the following questions. What do I already know about the DRA kits at my school? What I noticed about the DRA kits at my school? And what questions do I have for my colleagues about our DRA kits? Let's now take a closer look at the administration process of the DRA. Everything we will need to administer the DRA can be found inside our school's DRA kits. At CQSB, the majority of our schools are still using the DRA 2 kits to assess students in grades 1 to 3, and the DRA kits to assess students in grades 4 to 6. It is important that we take time to go through our school's kits to become familiar with all the material that we will be using for our assessments. So what exactly is the difference between the DRA and the DRA 2 kits? To understand this difference, we need to take a quick history lesson. The DRA kit is the first edition of the reading assessment, and it's the school's kit that the board provided to our schools for grades 4 to 6. The DRA 2 kit, well, you guessed it, is the second edition of the kit, which the school board purchased in order to assess students from grades 1 to 3. The biggest difference between the 2 kits is the complexity of the task that we're asking our students to complete to demonstrate their reading proficiency. You see, it changes at each reading level. For instance, with younger students, the comprehension task is typically in an interview form, whereas with older students, the task takes a written form. Both the DRA and the DRA 2 kits contain step-by-step instructions related to the assessment process, along with all the necessary materials. Both kits include teacher's guides, which are excellent tools that I highly recommend, especially when analyzing the data for the first time. They also contain Blackline Masters with the observation guides, student booklet sheets, assessment reporting tools. Each kit contains fiction and non-fiction benchmark books. So the DRA 2, it's levels A to 40, and the DRA kit is levels 40 to 80. And the kits also contain the DRA continuum, and there are 2 sets of continuums, one for non-fiction text and one for fiction text. Teachers in grades 1 to 3 and possibly grades 4 will typically use the DRA 2 kit. In this kit, up until level 24, students will primarily demonstrate their reading proficiency through oral responses, and the majority of the assessment will take place during individual teacher conferences. Teachers in grades 4 to 6 will typically use the DRA kit. In this kit, students will primarily demonstrate their reading proficiency through written work, and with the exception of the oral reading fluency portion, most of the assessment is done independently by the student. The teacher guides for both the DRA and the DRA 2 kits provide an overview of the DRA assessment process. They explain the various components, administration guidelines, and reporting procedures. They also include helpful descriptions and concrete examples of possible student answers, which is helpful when scoring assessments for the first time. In the teacher guides, we will notice the proficiency levels. Keep in mind that the levels listed in this document are for readers whose first language is English, which isn't necessarily the reality for all of our students within the CQSB learning community. The reality for our community is that many of our students are emerging bilinguals who are learning English as an additional language, which can have an impact initially on reading proficiency, especially in the early years. This is why at CQSB we are using a modified proficiency chart when considering students' independent reading levels. Here we have a copy of the CQSB proficiency levels. A copy of this document can be found within the ELA SharePoint site. Think of these levels as benchmarks that we are working towards, rather than final outcome success indicators. Remember, we cannot level a student. Levels are used to identify independent and instructional text choices. Take a moment to stop and explore the DRA kits and material at your school. Be sure to check out the level books as well as the teacher guide. Consider the following questions to guide you during this self-exploration time.